The idea that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains going in with American pilots and American crews, just understand, and don't kid yourself, no matter what you all say, that's called World War III.
All right, I'm not saying this is World War III, but we just recalled 3,000 troops, reservists and individual ready reserve, right? Don't know what's going on here. Trying to dig down and figure out, is the recruiting problem we got? So we can't recruit, so we got to haul some people in. Because we've been doing Operation Atlantic Resolve since 2014. So let me give you some context about this. Stand by.
Since 2014, the U.S. Army has led the Department of Defense's Atlantic Resolve land effort in Europe. Enabled by the European Deterrence Initiative, Army support to the Atlantic Resolve mission consists of approximately 6,000 soldiers assigned to armored, aviation, and logistical task forces overseen by a division.
All right, so you get the point. It's been going on a long time. Now we're just pumping guys in and out. After 2020, when people don't take the poke, I'm speculating here. Recruiting's down. 3,000 doesn't seem like a lot. But we'll get into it because it's 3,000 or what we determine we need. You know how this goes. 3,000 is 30,000. So let's take a gander at some of the source documents. Here, my friends, is the key statement. I hereby authorize the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Homeland Security, with respect to the Coast Guard, when it's not operating as a service in the Navy under the respective jurisdictions in order to active duty any units, any individuals and members not assigned to a unit organized to serve as a unit selected reserves or any member of the individual active reserve mobilization category designated under central regulations prescribed to the secretary concerned not exceed 3,000. All right, so you hear 3,000, you hear all the verbose language required in executive order. Let's see if we can get into a little bit more reporting, trying to find anything. Mainstream media, trying to sift through the mess. Let's take a look at this. Just came out from a Fox affiliate, I believe. Stand by.
New information coming out from the White House as President Biden has ordered authorized this new possible deployment to Europe as by my authority vested by me as the President of the Constitution. I hereby determine that it is necessary to augment the active armed powers of the United States for the effective conduct of Operation Atlantic Resolve in and around the United States, European.
It doesn't seem like it's possible. I know they're supposed to backfill in the states here. As everybody here knows, reservists, guard, ready reserves, inactive reserves, whatever, they all get deployed. It's not quite as easy as they just backfill here in the States.
Stated authority. So we want to learn more about this, what this means moving forward here on Live Now from Fox. And this all comes after the NATO summit wrapped up, President Biden authorizing those 3,000 military reservists to be deployed. To help break this all down, we're going to join by Hal Kemper, retired Marine Corps intelligence officer, CEO of Global Risk Intelligence and Planning. Hal, thank you again for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. How big of a deal is this when you now know that the President Biden authorizing some 3 hours?
So he works for the military-industrial complex. Let's just say that. Could be a great guy. How big of a deal is a huge deal, right? Or backfilling, whatever you want to call it, 3,000, wherever you deem necessary. So the answer should be, it's a huge deal. That's what it should be. We haven't seen this, and I'm trying to find out how many years, but it's not like something that happens often.
1,000 more potential reservists there, potentially to be deployed to Europe.
Andy, it kind of opens the door, if you will. It opens the door for bringing in reserves and National Guard. And basically what it does is it very much links the Operation Atlantic Resolve. And Atlantic Resolve is really the bolstering of NATO, particularly the eastern front of NATO, in response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And we have been rotating lots of forces in there. Of course, we've been following this over the last almost year and a half. The rotation of various brigades going into Poland, various forces from all over NATO rolling into the Baltic states and bolstering up that eastern frontier, if you will, right up against.
I don't know what bolstering up means to the average ham and egger. My wife's an officer in the Army Reserves. This should be interesting. Just got off active duty, and now you see 3,000. If you're in, you're about to get out. You're a helicopter pilot. They're keeping those people in, saying, hey, buddy, not so fast, hotshot. So this is a huge deal, and I don't know how you could say something but a huge deal.
Against Ukraine, right up against Belarus, right up against Russia. And, of course, now with Finland today becoming part of NATO, you might see some rotations potentially even going up there. Now, the 3,000 are reserves. Some are what's called select Marine Corps, or selected reserve units. Those are organized reserve units that are rotating over, and others are what's called individual ready reserve. These are individuals, they're ready to be mobilized, deployed.
So for those of you who don't know, you sign up for enlisted, you sign up for 8 years. You get out after 4, you get 4 years on the hook. But everybody realizes they're not doing anything for the 4 years. You're done. If you want to stay in, you would have stayed in the reserves or went into the reserves. You wouldn't have gone into this. This is a huge deal. There's very little reporting, very little on Twitter beyond just people speculating. You don't see any of the big brains coming out yet.
They maintain all the qualifications they need, but that will be critical for backfill, particularly in various, high demand but very little known, if you will, organizations. probably in areas like logistics, intelligence, and other areas, not big combat units, but all those things they have to do support. So that's pretty much what we're seeing today, and not a surprise.
Which is the bulk of the military, right? Support. That is the bulk. I mean, between drones, we're not going to haul in 10,000 more infantry troops. We're going to haul in the supports mechanism, the medical, logistics. I don't know about intel, but let's keep going.
Again, this operation has gone on for 18 months. So a lot of those active duty units, they've rolled into Europe, they've rolled out of Europe, they're rolling back into Europe. And at some point in our total force structure, we have to augment that by bringing in certain reserve units to kind of...
What he's saying doesn't make sense. They've been doing it since 2014. I showed you that. This isn't anything new. Now, it may have changed and we just weren't aware. Maybe I'm not aware. It's been going on a long time. They've been rolling in, they've been rolling out. And now all of a sudden we need 3,000 or whatever we decide. That was a statement.
Fill it out to give those regular active duty units a chance to come back, basically regroup, retrain, refit, all the things they need to be done because they can't be deployed all the time.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, there are already potentially people over there not involved in the war in Ukraine, but this was just an authorization for the Department of Defense, right? It's not like President Biden deployed these troops there to go to Europe himself.
No, well, they're going to Europe. It's probably where they'll end up. They don't have to. They can be backfilled elsewhere. It depends on how broadly Operation Atlantic Resolve is. They
can get sent anywhere, right? That's the point of this fucking thing. These people are so mealy-mouthed. This guy could be outstanding, I'm sure, but his whole gig is he works for military contractors, I'm sure, gives advice, think tanks, whatever.
Determined to be. For example, in Washington, D.C., you could have potentially, and I'm not saying this is the case, but potentially there could be select billets in the Pentagon, Defense Intelligence Agency, other locations, which are there for one purpose, and that's to support Atlantic Resolve. Potentially, those reservists could be brought in to fill in those units, and that would be something I would expect to see with the individual ready reserve portion, which is about 450 of the 3,000. That's a very likely thing you could see. But I don't actually know if that's how they're going to do this, or if all of those are to be deployed over to Europe to backfill. The big thing, though, is unlike what we saw with Operations Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and certainly if you want to go back to Desert Storm, these are not combat deployments into combat. They are not going to.
How do we know that? I read the executive order. It didn't say anything about anything like that. Zero. So it's speculation. I'll leave the links to a bunch of articles. This video, you can watch the whole thing. My point is, you say these aren't combat troops. I mean, what does that even mean? You're a mechanic, you get sent over there. You're just a guy got out. They won't let you out. So this is a huge deal. Despite what they may say, it's totally normal. It's not totally normal. You saw this in the beginning. Lieutenant General Douglas Sims, the senior military Joint Chiefs of Staff, told reporters these authorities will enable the department to better support and sustain the enhanced American presence overseas. As War College speak for, we're gearing up. Now, it could be posturing, I get it, but this is unique. We don't do this often unless we're in a war. I remember at 90, they called up those inactive reserve dudes who were old, Camp Lejeune, looking at them going, what the hell's going on here? And, it wouldn't even really matter that much if we just didn't send, here goes Sims again, that American cluster munitions, which the White House agreed to provide last week following a lengthy internal debate. And we saw maybe a year ago, they said we can't provide cluster munitions to Ukraine. Now providing cluster munitions to Ukraine. Now, I don't know if this is recruiting part of this, and maybe these are guys just you really need, but it's a massive deal, and I'm not finding a lot looking on Twitter, on mainstream news. People just not talking about it. Let me know what your thoughts are. Again, take a look in the description box. I got links to different articles. That video, you can watch the whole thing, but it's the same kind of War College talk, like, it's not a big deal, bro. We've been doing the same thing since 2014, so this is a change. This is a big deal.